Howdy, Dennis Bradford here. Let's think some about being, feeling, and doing better. Are you as happy as you'd like to be? Are you living a life of ease, grace, and contentment, smoothly transitioning from one fulfilling, satisfying experience to another? Probably not. Most people are more dissatisfied than they'd like to be. If that's you, please don't conclude that there's something wrong with you. It's likely that nobody ever taught you how to feel better. This free training is for you if you're not feeling as good about your life as you'd like and are more dissatisfied than you'd like to be. Hi, I'm Dr. Dennis Bradford. Welcome to this video in which I'll teach you how to feel better emotionally for the rest of your life. If enjoying greater emotional tranquility doesn't interest you, this video is not for you. Right now, you'll discover how eliminating psychological stress is possible, how to begin to feel better emotionally forever by using the WAVE technique, why it works and how I learned it, and I'll offer you even more free training at the end of this video. How I discovered the secrets of the WAVE. When I was about 18, I had the first of two identity crises in my life. I was a very unhappy teenager. Is there such a thing as a happy teenager? I'm not sure I've ever met one, if there is. I was honest with myself. I wanted to live well. I thought that if life is worth living, it's worth living well. And I knew that I didn't understand how to live life well. I knew that there were a lot of things I didn't want to do and that wouldn't provide me with what I considered the highest quality of life, but I didn't know what to do. In 1964, when I was 18, I became a philosopher. A philosopher is just a lover of wisdom. That's what the word means. To be wise is to live well. So what philosophers try to do is to live well. If they succeed, if they become successful, they are sages. If they don't succeed, they're simply unsuccessful philosophers. At least I thought, well, I could learn how to think well about living well. Whether I could do it or not was another question. The results of the first crisis were I obtained formal education in philosophy. I obtained a pre-professional philosophy bachelor's degree, and I went on and obtained a master's degree and a doctorate in philosophy. I joined Mensa, which is the High IQ Society, and I was accepted as a member of the American Philosophical Association. Later in life, became a certified life coach as well as a certified energy healer. I joined the Rochester Zen Center in the mid-90s and have had a daily spiritual practice ever since. In other words, for the last 3 decades. I helped others. I don't know if you count military service as helping others, but I was a lieutenant in the Army for a couple of years. I spent 32 years teaching undergraduates and counseling them, and I'm the author of over 30 books. And I'm enthusiastic right now about sharing with you some of what I've learned. Those were the results of the first crisis. Well, in my 40s, I had a second identity crisis. College worked as it was supposed to for me. I believe, controversially, that the purpose of college is to have an identity crisis in a relatively safe environment and to come out of it with some training on how to go forward in life. Well, there's also such a thing as a midlife crisis, and I guess I had that too, because after 14 years, my beloved wife dumped me for somebody else. Well, I again was honest with myself. I didn't blame her. I mean, after all, a successful relationship takes two, and I suppose so does an unsuccessful one. But the only part of it I controlled was what I did, and I knew there was something missing in my life. it was a hard time emotionally. It was embarrassing, actually. It's even embarrassing to talk about it now. Here I was, a tenured philosophy professor, and yet I was an emotional basket case. I couldn't sleep for more than 90 minutes. I'd drive a car down the road and burst into tears. I had no strength. I went into the gym and I would normally warm up with 185 pounds on squats. I couldn't even do one. Um, I couldn't go to a mall. Why not? Well, I'd see couples walking hand in hand and figure out, ask myself, what's wrong with me? How come nobody's walking hand in hand with me? What's wrong? Well, I took responsibility for it, and I had no idea what to do. I was lying flat on my nose on the ground, and I decided that was intolerable, so I had to do something. I didn't even know how to get up. I started looking around. I thought of a moving meditation, and there was a course in one of those at a nearby community college, and I took that for 6 weeks, and I was amazed. It was a course in Tai Chi, and I was just literally amazed that after a couple of weeks I could feel the chi moving. I thought, what? There must be something to this. Then I discovered seating meditation, which I thought might even benefit me more than a moving meditation. And I had on my bookshelf, and I'd read as an undergraduate, The Three Pillars of Zen by Roshi Philip Kapleau, who'd founded the Rochester Zen Center in 1966, and I'd never heard of it. And I looked them up in the phone book, called them up, and they sent me by mail some introductory materials, and I became a trial, a trial member for a year, and then I became a full member, and actually I became a formal student of its Roshi in the year 2000. So that was quite an experience. More of the emotional shakeout was I realized I was a spiritual zero, and I realized that that's somehow or other connected to my prolonged unwanted emotions that I was feeling, and I wanted to figure out emotions, and I wanted to figure out spirituality, and I wanted to see what they could do for me. The result was I began a daily spiritual practice. It's continued to this day, nearly 30 years later, and I practice formally about 2 hours a day. That is not necessary, let me quickly add. You may if you want to, and you'll find if you do it well, it's a nurturing practice, and you may want to do that. More recently, I discovered that there's actually a way now to measure happiness. It's sort of unbelievable, but it's true. And I'll return to measuring happiness later. Let me first talk about the wave. Why the wave works. You don't know what it is yet, but I'll explain to you why it works. It is better than a normal seated meditation practice like Zazen, which is what they teach at the Rochester Zen Center. And I'll explain why it's better, because it involves a lot less pain, physical pain. And it combines the results of aliveness practice. So if you have aliveness practice and the wave, it's an intensification technique for the what I call aliveness awareness. Now, what are the advantages of the wave? Well, again, it's similar to Zazen or any seated or classic stilling meditative or spiritual practice without the pain. Don't worry about the word spiritual. That is not the same as religious. There's nothing you have to believe here. I'm going to give you a technique. You try it for yourself. If it works, and I think it will, terrific. If it doesn't, throw it out. Try something else. But I think you won't need to do that. It combines the ease of what I call aliveness awareness or energy awareness with an intensification technique. So it therefore provides the best of both techniques. Does it work? Well, I've, over the years, taught many undergraduates as well as many prisoners. I volunteered once a week for years at nearby prisons. Attica and Groveland correctional facilities here in upstate New York and taught many prisoners. And I can tell you that both undergraduates and prisoners have given me privately a number of testimonials, I guess you'd call them, many comments about how these practices improve their lives. What about you? Well, if you learn the wave, and I'm about to teach it to you, and begin to practice even for just a few minutes daily, I predict that you'll be forever grateful that you learned it. It's simple, it's easy, and I'm about to teach it to you right now. Will the wave solve every problem? No, not directly. It's not magic. However, if you use it daily, you will reduce or eliminate psychological stress, and you retard or eliminate the arising of prolonged unwanted emotions such as shame, guilt, grief, anger, and fear. And those improvements emotionally will spill over into other parts of your life, such as your work life and probably more importantly, your relationships. How does the wave work? Well, let me explain why it works to reduce or dissolve psychological stress. What is stress? Stress is the two forces pulling against each other. Think of a tug of war where you have two teams holding each end of a rope trying to pull the other team across a line. Now, they may be pulling very hard, and the rope may not even be moving initially, but there's a lot of stress on it. Now, how do you eliminate stress? Well, you simply eliminate one of the forces that's causing the stress. And that's exactly why psychological stress can be eliminated. The force is a thought. Can you drop your thought? Yes. Therefore, you see immediately, in theory, it's possible to eliminate psychological stress. Now, that's not true for physical stress, of course. Physical stress, you have physical forces pulling against each other. For example, I'm sitting up right now. Well, gravity is pulling me towards the center of the earth, but my skeleton is holding me upright. So there's tension there. There's stress there. That's not eliminable. Obviously, I could lie on the ground. I wouldn't go anywhere. But I'm talking here about psychological stress. Now, why does the wave work to retard the arising of prolonged unwanted emotions? Well, it's because it reduces attachment to the ego. Now, that's a long story, and that's what I had to figure out. As you decrease attachment to your egoic mind, the ego I, your ego, what will happen is that stress will be reduced. As a matter of fact, the way to wisdom, the sages teach us, I now realize, is what I call the way of non-attachment. Now, I've explained a lot more about emotions in some of my books. I'm not here pitching the books, but there's more explanation here if you want it. One book is Emotional Facelift. Another book is Emotional Empowerment. And those books are available at Amazon.com. And if you buy them or get them from a library and read them, you will understand why the wave works to reduce attachment to the ego and therefore enhances emotional security. So what are the advantages of using the wave? Well, it combines the benefits of any classic seated meditation like Zazen without the pain. Now, why does that matter? Well, there's a lot of pain involved in mastering Zazen. For example, I'm the veteran of many week-long meditative retreats, sesshin, and Zen training, and in a sesshin, at least as conducted by the Rochester Zen Center, there's a minimum of 10 hours of motionless sitting a day, and they encourage you to do more. Now, that's quite deliberate, and I think you can probably imagine what it's like after a couple of hours of sitting motionless. The pain just seems to increase throughout the day, so by the time you're it's 9 o'clock at night, you start at about 4:30 in the morning, there's a lot of pain. It's not for tourists. And that's quite deliberate because they want to recreate a loss in ordinary everyday life. And the reason is that you are more likely to make a spiritual breakthrough as a result of something bad happening to you rather than something good. Don't think of, say, spiritual awakening as coming as you get a little bit better and better and better every day, and then voila, in some happy day you break through and have a spiritual awakening. It doesn't usually work that way. It works the other way around. You have something bad happen to you, a big loss like a divorce or death of a loved one, or you lose your job, or your house burns down, or you lose a lot of money, something like that, and you go bang, and that's when you can have a spiritual breakthrough. Well, the result is that unless you can stand the pain, you're not going to sit many hours a day. Most people don't sit that long per day, maybe 15 or 20 minutes twice a day. Well, that may not be enough to stimulate a spiritual breakthrough. And since they don't get the spiritual breakthrough, they quit. So small doses aren't going to work well. And intense doses, like at a week-long sesshin, are too much for many people. This is why the wave is a better alternative for many people. And I recommend it for beginning Western adults. What about proof that the wave works? Well, it's possible to measure happiness. I know you may be reluctant to believe that, but I've explained how elsewhere. Now, that's based on the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins. In fact, it's his trilogy. And the books are Power. You can see these are significant books. Power versus Force is the first one. I believe it came out in 1999. It was followed by The Eye of the Eye. And that was followed with the last book of the trilogy, I. Those are quite a bit of reading, quite a bit of understanding, and they will stress you if you read them. But they're very, very valuable books. Now, what Hawkins did was he developed a logarithmic graph from 1 to 1,000, and by using kinesthesiology or muscle testing, it's possible to calibrate someone's energy level of consciousness, on the graph. Now, the average person does learn how, from experience, to become happier over time. This is why, for example, elderly people are likely to be happier than teenagers, because they've learned a little bit about becoming happier. Well, the average lifetime calibration improvement is about 5 to 7 levels, according to Dr. Hawkins' measurements, and he and his students made hundreds of thousands of measurements. However, and this is important, sometimes large, significant increases are possible. Here's a testimonial. Quote, "Without our ever having met in person, Dr. Bradford has helped me boost my personal calibration on Dr. Hawkins' map of consciousness by 137 levels. Thank you, Dr. Bradford." Well, thank you, Beatrice. You can find that on the first page of my website at DennisEBradford.com if you want it. I myself have boosted my personal calibration by about 150 levels. It worked for Beatrice. It worked for me. There's nothing spiritually special about either one of us. It'll work for you too if you're serious about becoming happier and feeling better. Because the higher your calibration on the map of consciousness, the better you live and the happier you'll feel. I happen to believe that Dr. Hawkins' map of consciousness is one of the most exciting intellectual advances in recent decades, and in fact, I wrote a book about it. And here's my book. If you don't want to read the trilogy and are interested in Hawkins, I recommend my own book, Living Well According to David R. Hawkins. It's available at Amazon.com, brand new this year. It's 2023, it's July 2023, came out the end of May. And I heartily recommend it. It's available inexpensively for under $10 in paperback, and I think it's $6.99 or something like that in an ebook or Kindle format. It's, as befits an introduction, short, only maybe 82 pages of text, something like that. So if you want to learn more about Hawkins's map of consciousness, I suggest that you use that. That's where the evidence comes from for my claiming that the wave will work really to boost your, raise your level of consciousness. You're going to notice the aliveness in your body for a few minutes, and you're going to feel it throughout your body, and then you're going to connect that, noticing it, with your breathing. It's that simple. It may not make any sense to you now, but it will in a moment. Now, getting comfortable in a reclining position may already be a problem if you're not getting enough sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep and you fall asleep, so what? You need sleep. Don't worry about it. I think you're going to find that the aliveness sensations are so intense that you're going to wonder after a while why you're not levitating, but just falling asleep. It's not a problem I have when I do it. Or just have a little caffeine or something like that, coffee or tea or something. And as far as noticing your breathing, that just means focusing on your inhalations and exhalations, and you're going to connect them to the feeling of aliveness. All right, now let me explain exactly how to do this. All right, you're going to lie back and get comfortable. I use a recliner. You may not have a recliner. If you have one, that's ideal. If you don't, lie on your bed, lie on the floor. If you lie flat like that, put a pillow or something under your knees to relieve the tension in your lower back, and you probably also want a small pillow under your head for comfort. All right, whether you're on the recliner or on the floor or bed, put your legs together and just relax them, and then hold your upper arms close to your torso. Put your hands, excuse me, on the arms of the recliner, or if you're lying on a bed, you can, excuse me again, you can put them next to your hips or on top of your hips, whichever is more comfortable. It doesn't make a difference. Relax completely and close your eyes initially. You're not going to have to keep your eyes closed, but initially you'll find it helpful. Now, how do you do the wave? Well, first, relax. Let your breathing slow down. It will become slower and deeper and quieter and so on. All right? Just relax a couple of minutes. Now, focus on the aliveness. Now, what's the aliveness? Well, imagine I'm sitting here now and I'm holding up my right hand and I close my eyes. There's no wind or anything blowing on the right hand. And I ask myself, how do I know if I still have a hand? I can't see it. There's nothing I'm feeling on its skin. So what do I have to do? Well, I have to pay attention to the sensations inside the hand. And that's exactly what it is. And now it's a little odd. Now, we don't usually feel that. The reason we don't usually feel it is because we're addicted to compulsive thinking. We're always thinking. We're not noticing those kinds of sensations. Well, it feels good to be alive. And if you've ever noticed it, or once you begin to notice it, you realize that that's true. So you're going to focus on the aliveness in your hands. Now, some people find it easier to focus on the aliveness in the feet. Now, I don't know why the extremities work, but that's the way it is. Try it either way. All I want you to do is focus on the aliveness in your hands for 5 minutes. You can set a little timer, make sure it's not jarringly loud, and then just stop. Okay, if you haven't felt any aliveness that day, no problem, do it the next day, do it the next day. It took me about 2 weeks before I felt anything. And I felt a little bit of aliveness in the knuckle of the index finger of my right hand. I wonder if that's it. Well, it was it. Because the next day I extended it to the whole forefinger, and then the whole hand, and then the other hand, and then one foot, and the other foot, and then up the arms, the forearms, and the upper arms, up the legs, up the front of the legs, up the shins, up the thighs, up into the torso, into my face, okay? And you'll feel it all over your body, and just focus on it. Now, thoughts are going to come in, and when you notice them, simply let them go. That's the essence of any meditative or spiritual practice. Just let the thoughts go. You're not thinking now. You're just feeling. You're feeling the sensations of aliveness in your body, and those sensations feel really good. Okay? I've just taught you how to begin aliveness awareness. All right? Just do it 5 minutes a day, and you're going to feel it sooner or later. We know you're going to feel it because you're alive, and it feels good to be alive. You just haven't noticed it yet. Now, if you are really, really addicted to thinking all the time, it's going to take you longer. I've had people, I remember one prisoner, first time I introduced it, he felt it right away. In fact, he felt it so easily that it was, for him, easy to do a walking meditation while he was feeling the aliveness. I could never do that. I could feel the aliveness in my still upper body when I was walking, but not all over the body. Now, what you'll do is, for a few sessions, and it's up to you how many you take, you're going to feel the aliveness all over your body. And don't go on until you can do that. So you're going to feel it in your feet, in your shins, your upper thighs, your hands, your forearms, your upper arms, shoulders, face, and so on. So you can feel it throughout your whole body. Now, once you can feel it throughout your whole body, and you've been practicing now 5 minutes a day, that's fine. It's time to begin the wave. Now, what is the wave? Well, the wave is based on the idea that motion is easier for us to notice than when there is no motion. Think of, let's say, a hunter in a deer stand in the fall. All right, he's up at 4:30 in the morning. He climbs up into his deer stand. He watches over the pasture or the meadow for a deer to appear, and he just sits there and waits till he sees motion. And the motion will attract his attention. Right? It's kind of like that. I'm not a hunter myself. I don't know what that's like exactly, but it's something like that with noticing the aliveness awareness. You're going to notice it, but now I want you to notice it in a certain sequence. And that sequence is you're going to start at your feet. Notice the aliveness in your feet. Then notice the aliveness in your shins. Notice the aliveness in your thighs. And go up your hands and arms to your face. Go all the way up your body. Now, once you're able to do that, what you do is think of the wave as an intensity technique for aliveness awareness. You're going to focus on the aliveness from your feet to your head with every inhalation, and then reverse that for every exhalation. So when you breathe in, you feel the aliveness rising. It seems the aliveness isn't really moving, of course, it's your attention that's moving, but it's moving from your feet up your legs, up your arms, up your torso, into your head as you inhale, and then as you exhale, as you let the air out, you're going to notice the aliveness going out of your body from your head to your feet. That's what the wave is. It's an intensity technique for aliveness awareness. So connect your inhalations and exhalations in that way with the aliveness or energy sensations that you've learned to feel in your body. The focus of your attention is now moving, and it's easier that way to maintain focus. Okay. Here's another testimonial. Quote, Dr. Bradford has remotely helped me raise my personal calibration on Dr. Hawkins's map of consciousness by a whopping 276 levels, and it's still rising. I'm very grateful that our paths crossed. And that's from Joyce. Thank you, Joyce. Again, that's on the first page of my DennisCBradford.com website. And she did that only using aliveness awareness. And it took her a couple years. I don't remember how long exactly. But with the intensity technique, once you master aliveness awareness, if you add the wave to it, I don't see why you can't duplicate her feat in a shorter amount of time. Now, what's the investment? Well, it doesn't cost you a penny. I just taught it to you. The only investment is your time. And the only reason you'd put any time into it is because you think it might work. Well, don't take my word for it. Try it. Again, start with 5 minutes a day until you begin to feel the aliveness. Keep at it until you feel the aliveness all over your body. Then add in the wave and see how you're feeling then. Take another sort of emotional assay of yourself at that point. I think you're going to keep doing it. If so, extend it to 10 minutes twice a day, 15 minutes twice a day, 20 minutes twice a day is fine. You can do that for the rest of your life. I recommend having a cup of coffee or tea in the morning and doing it for your 15 or 20 minutes, and then again in the late afternoon or just before bed. If you do it before bed, do not then go to some electronic media like television or YouTube or something like that to watch videos afterwards. Might as well take advantage of it. You're feeling peaceful, fall asleep. Again, I do 4:30 or YouTube or something like that to watch videos afterwards. Might as well take advantage of it. You're feeling peaceful, fall asleep. Again, I do 4 30-minute rounds a day, but 2 rounds of 15 or 20 minutes is fine. Now, the key, though, is not those 15 or 20 minutes. The key is doing it as frequently as possible throughout the day. Even just taking 1 or 2 breaths in which you take a moment and let go of thoughts and feel your breathing. It may be enough to stimulate, once you get good at it, the feeling of aliveness. And the way to extend it throughout the day is to connect it to routine tasks that you do every day anyway. Perhaps talking on the phone, or as you get into a car, before you start your car, sit there for a minute or 2. Before you sit down to eat, brushing your teeth, anything like that. And the idea is sages are always meditating. There's no such thing as a sage who doesn't meditate. All right? If you want to live better, you want to live like a sage, you need an effective, efficient meditative practice, and I've just given you one with aliveness awareness intensified by the wave. You have that. Now, what will happen is, if you use that, it will prevent unwanted emotions from arising in the first place. That's its advantage. Now, you may have some more questions. That's fine. Let me give you a couple of additional resources. You can go to YouTube, and if you do a search for Stress Reduction Wizardry 9, that's the words Stress Reduction Wizardry and then the numeral 9, you'll see an older video I did on just aliveness awareness that you may find helpful. Or you can simply just email me, dennis@endfearfast.com, DENNIS @END, fear, FEAR, fast, FAST.com. And if it's a quick, specific question about practice, I'll do my best to answer it. If you want more on the wave technique or on aliveness awareness, I recommend the books, talks, and videos of Eckhart Tolle, although his remarks, last I looked, are scattered all over the place in various places. A lot of his writings and talks are stream of consciousness, so it's hard to find anything. And I've just gathered it all in one place for you and tried to make it easier. He's the best on teaching it, and I recommend him as a teacher. You may or may not like his style, but his content is excellent, and I suggest you just get used to his style. As he emphasizes, both aliveness awareness and the wave are techniques, and eventually you'll need to stop relying on any techniques. The problem is getting well started with getting control of your mind, which has been out of control, which is why you don't feel you're living well. The problem is getting started without any kind of technique is nearly impossible. So these techniques are like ladders that you use to climb up on the roof and then kick the ladder away. Now, here's another question you may have. What about prolonged unwanted emotions that you already have? You see, the wave is a technique that is designed to prevent their arising in the first place. What if you already have some? Or what if some escape the wave and you have some later on in 5 months or 5 years? Well, I recommend a technique for doing that. If you already know that you have certain prolonged unwanted emotions that you want to get rid of, well, I recommend learning how to get rid of them. How? Well, I can teach you the tactic that I use, and it works. And if you're interested, again, just email me. We'll set up a mutually convenient time, and you call me on the telephone. We'll talk for 20 or 30 minutes, and I'll teach you by actually having you use it on some emotion of your choice. Very simple. Okay, Dennis at endfearfast.com. No cost, no obligation. If you'll learn and master the wave, and if you'll learn the second technique on how to dissolve any prolonged unwanted emotions that you have anyway, there's no good reason to carry the burden of heavy emotions with you as you go through life. Why do people do that when there's an alternative? The alternative is simple. Learn the two techniques and use them. It's that simple. There's no reason that people have to suffer emotionally for long periods of time. And I'm talking weeks, months, decades. Some people die with prolonged unwanted emotions after having suffered with them for several decades. It's a shame because it's unnecessary. Well, there's a reason. Either they're completely ignorant that there's a way to live better emotionally, or they're enjoying the secret payoff or a juice that they get from it. And that juice is called victimology. They're playing the victim. Oh, I can't live well because my husband cheated on me. Oh, I can't live well because I got fired from my job. Oh, I can't live well because my child is a drug addict. Whatever your excuse is. Okay? Yes, these things are upsetting. Get over it. Okay? You're an adult. There's no reason for you to suffer from prolonged unwanted emotions. You're making life worse for yourself and for those people around you. Even if you don't do it for yourself, I recommend learning the wave and how to dissolve unwanted emotions so that others around you don't have to suffer. Why not live with more lightness and grace and ease? Should you learn the second technique? There's no reason not to, especially once you discover that the wave works well. I've been very, very blessed in life, and this is an easy, enjoyable way for me to give back. I enjoy helping people and talking with them on the phone. I'll be happy to teach you the second technique. Just give me a call and we'll go through it. You know my name. If something ever happens to that email address, you can probably find my name online, Dennis E. Bradford. I also mentioned before, I have another website, DennisEBradford.com. You may be able to contact me through there. Most people never learn how to live without the arising of prolonged unwanted emotions. And when they do arise, most people have no clue what to do to dissolve them completely, permanently. You now have the option of living better emotionally. Should you? Well, I recommend it. If you're happy having just learned the wave, that's fine. Master it. It'll benefit you for the rest of your life. If you'd also like to learn the second tactic on how to dissolve any unwanted prolonged emotion that you already have, just sign up for a free phone call by emailing me. Now, there's a caveat there. It'll work only if you speak English and only if you call me. Okay? That's only fair. Now, what about if you want to understand Dr. Hawkins's ideas on raising your energy level of consciousness? Well, I specialize in helping people do that. And again, I've written a book on that. Let me show it to you again. Living Well According to Dr. David R. Hawkins. It's now available and I recommend it. It's not necessarily an easy read, but you'll learn a lot from it. And it's certainly a lot easier and I think more systematic and coherent than even reading his trilogy. Much, much shorter too. Whether you read the book or not, whether you get the book or not, whether you do anything more or not, you now have no excuse for living poorly emotionally. There's no reason why you can't live emotionally better for the rest of your life. May you realize your true nature. Peace.